Welcome back to Unquiet You. Today we are going to talk about the unexpected gifts of my divorce. It has been officially a year since I announced that I was divorcing, and throughout this year, there's been a lot of really, really cool things happen. There's been a lot of things I didn't expect to happen or I didn't think I was prepared for. I am very happy with where I'm at. I do believe that the decision was the best decision. That also doesn't mean that it didn't come with a lot of pain and a lot of heartache. But through all of the pain and heartache that I did have, I learned so much more about the person I am, the talents that I have, the skills that I have, and the kind of person that I want to show up as, not only for myself, but for my children, for my future partner, for the life that I'm creating now. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Before I announced that we were divorcing, I went through a ton of work on myself. I decided that before I divorced, or before I even brought up the word divorce, I was going to give it 100%. Like, I was going to show up the best version of myself and do the work on myself, because I do believe that we all have work to do and we all have areas that we can work on. And especially in my marriage, I think we both got a little lazy in the sense of putting each other first. And I think that's where resentment builds up. And I think that's where we get into habits that we don't necessarily want or that don't benefit our family, or our marriage. So I did a lot of work on myself. I took a lot of accountability. I showed up in the ways that I had not been showing up. So I prepared myself. I did a lot of the work beforehand. I really decided that I needed to surround myself with great people. And, it was within that year, I think it was last April, March or April, I started coming across these friendships that were so important that I didn't even know at the time were going to be such a vital role in my healing process and becoming this next version of me. But I believe that when the timing is right, things do happen and the right people come into your life. So I started forming relationships with friends that were building me up and that were holding me accountable, and also allowing me the space that I needed to talk about things and work through things. And so when we did decide to divorce a year ago, I thought I was so prepared. I had mentally done the work. I thought I had emotionally done the work. There were a lot of things that held me back. There were a lot of fears that popped up the minute we said it. The fears of losing who I was. I had been known as the wife. I was the mom. I was like, this is when I signed on for this, I kind of thought it was going to be forever. So I just took that identity on. And then all of a sudden I wasn't the wife anymore. I didn't have the ability to call him up and make a decision together. Like, we were no longer doing this as a team. And so that was something that I thought I had prepared myself for, but I actually had not. There were a lot of worries that I came up with that I thought I had worked through on the co-parenting part. I really didn't know how it was going to impact my children. Most of them are adults, but we do have one who's still little in some sense. And they all had their own emotions. They all had their own thoughts, their own feelings. And that was something I wasn't prepared for going into it. And just also understanding that the dreams that we had created together, like the goals that we had together, they were no longer there. Like, that was something that was very painful in the beginning, because that was just becoming who we were, right? Like, we had goals of what we wanted to do as grandparents and how we wanted to do things in our business and show up and where we wanted to live eventually. Like, all of these things were kind of ripped out from underneath me in the sense of they're not there anymore. So it was kind of a clean slate of like, what do you want? And everything moving forward was on me. So those are some things that I really had to stop for a moment, and I wasn't actually prepared to handle in the time being. But I also learned that grief is not linear. Grief is not something you just say, okay, well, I grieved this marriage, now I'm moving on. It showed up chapter after chapter after chapter. And every time, the first holidays, it showed up in ways I didn't expect. The first birthday, the first event that we would normally do something together. There were just so many waves of grief, like different things with our children. And all of this would come, and I would think that I would overcome it and I would work through it. And I would, okay, I got it. Like we've had that feeling, and then something else would come up. And what I've learned is that every layer, there's going to be a different version of the grief that I have to go through. It's getting easier and easier, but there are some things that still haven't happened. Like we haven't had the first of some things yet. And so I just know that all of that is okay to feel on and off, that it's not something that you'll go through and move on from. One of the really hard truths that I had to come to terms with was that your circle changes. The people that are in your circle, some of them choose to take other sides, or some of them just choose to walk away because they don't believe in divorce and they think you're making the wrong choice. I don't know why some people don't want to move forward with you, but what I had to take into consideration was I had a really good group of solid people that I had met the year before. Like they had all come into my life at the perfect time. I had a couple of girlfriends from the last few years that have really stuck by my side and shown up for me in ways that I didn't even know that I needed or desired. So learning that my circle was going to change and grieving that and being okay with that was another hard truth that I dealt with. Boundaries have been tested. I am a very big advocate of boundaries. And what I've learned is sometimes the boundaries that I put in place are being tested to see how I'm going to show up, to see how I'm going to react. And that is something that in the beginning, I took it very personal because I just have always felt like I was pretty open and like I set boundaries for a reason. But what I've learned is that every human goes through their own experience, goes through their own emotions, and sometimes pushing boundaries is the way that they are looking to communicate. And so that's something I've also had to work really hard on, is keeping my boundaries in place and sticking to what I truly believe internally and not allowing others to play a role in that or to cloud my judgment. I have also noticed the self-talk, the work that I've had to do around that. I had to rebuild certain levels of confidence. There were certain things that I didn't even know I lost my confidence on until after I stepped out of the marriage and realized like some of the decision making, I had just given up certain parts of my life and like allowed other people to make decisions that now I had to find the confidence back in myself to make those choices and decisions for what was going to be best for me and my daughter and our other children when they were involved. So those are all some of the harder truths that I had to come to terms with, that I don't know that I expected them to come, or maybe I didn't plan for them to come. I thought I had worked through. But out of all of those, there's been so many gifts. And one of them is the freedom and decision making. Like I started making decisions from the time that I bought my house and the things that go on in my house and the choices that we make, the choices I make in my business, how I spend my money, what I do with my money, how I invest my money. Like all of these are decisions like I get to make on my own. And what's been a really cool gift is that I'm actually really good at them. Like I think I had, for whatever reason, convinced myself I wasn't good at making certain decisions and that I quote unquote needed someone else to make them for me. But what I've learned is I'm actually pretty good at them. I'm actually really good at making decisions that will benefit my future, my children's future, making decisions that are right for us and that bring us joy and happiness and move us forward. I've made a lot of really big, bold decisions in my business this year, and they are paying off tremendously. And those were decisions that I would not have made a year ago. They were things that I was actually really scared to do. One of the biggest lessons or reminders for me was the first week of 2025, I made exactly what I made the entire year last year. And what was so cool was that it was a complete mind shift for me when I was able to switch that mindset into this is my life and I'm going to live it the way I want to live it. And I'm showing up unapologetically, and I'm not going to allow other people's opinions to weigh me down. Everything shifted. My business picked up. The people started coming, but I looked at my numbers and was shocked to see that very first week is exactly what I made the entire year last year, which wasn't a lot in comparing things. You definitely couldn't live off of it. But for me, that was a huge win and a huge reminder that I'm good at what I'm doing. Like, I'm making really good decisions. So I've also had a really cool gift of a different level of relationship with my children. My daughter and I, especially, we've always been super, super close, but she is coming out of her shell. She's finding her own personality. She's finding her own desires. She's creating things that she never created before. She's learning to have power in her voice. She's standing up for herself more. She's gaining her independence. What I realized is, I think in a way I was very protective of my children and I was very protective of her. She was kind of I don't want to call her my scapegoat, but in some ways that she was my person. Like, I relied a lot on her for emotional support without me knowing it or her knowing it. But this year she has really spread her wings and she has started to fly and do things that I would never have been able to do at her age. And so my relationship with some of my other children have really deepened to a new level. Like, we're very open. We talk about things. I want my children to know that I'm always there for them, but they're also seeing this version of me who is standing up for myself, who's making choices for myself, who's creating this next chapter. And, every decision I make, I always say, like, I am, in some ways, maybe I am a little selfish now because I am doing more for me, but every decision I make, I bring along my children in some way, shape, or form. The younger one is involved in the everyday world, but the other ones I'm including in different ways now that I never imagined I would be able to. So, I've talked about my friendships. Like, I have a very, very tight group of people that I rely on now and that are like true, true friends. And that is such a gift because for so long I felt like most of my friendships were from my spouse. They were because of my spouse and they weren't truly my people who had my best interests at heart. And so that's been a really fun gift that's come out of all of this. And also rediscovering like who I am, rediscovering that I get to decide what I want and I get to decide what I want to eat. I get to decide what I want to watch. Like, I get to decide to become that version of me. I've said this before in the past that the day I woke up and realized that I feel like that 28-year-old version of me who I absolutely loved. I had done so much work on myself. I was loving life at 28. Like, the day I woke up and I was like, I am her, but with so much more knowledge in such a better place. Like, I love that feeling. I have watched my sleep get better. I've watched my inflammation drop tremendously. If you see a picture of me from, even December, January to today, I look like a totally different person. I've lost the mental weight that all of this was holding on to for me. I didn't even realize until after I left the situation. So that's been a huge gift. A huge gift is me proving to myself through physical fitness that I can achieve goals that I never thought I could achieve. Not only physically, but I've also achieved financial goals. I've also started making things happen that I never thought I would even understand how to make happen. So those are all really, really great gifts that part of all of this has taught me. And so people ask me a lot like, when did you get over the marriage? And I don't know that you do get over a marriage. I know that I truly loved this person unconditionally and this was going to be my life. And now everything has shifted. And so there's going to be moments where I have thoughts that come up or emotions that come up and I allow them to come up. I don't try to fight them because it's just part of who I am. And I think it's actually helped me grow in some ways. Like, I'm very resilient. I am like showing up for myself every single day more and more. And sometimes people ask me, what would I tell myself a year ago today? I don't really know that I would give myself a ton of advice other than allow it all to move through you. Like, don't try to fight things away. Like, be okay with There were some nights that I would cry myself to sleep. There were some times where I had to work through thoughts over and over and over again because they just kept showing up. There were a lot of thoughts of like, why wasn't I good enough, right? Like these are all, I think, normal thoughts. Even the work that I had done, they still kept showing up in certain arenas. And so I would just tell myself a year ago going into this, like, be prepared to do the work and be prepared for moments to suck and be really, really hard. And also be prepared for all the joy and the self-discovery and the new things. I remember driving in the car with my daughter back in, I don't know, it was a few months ago, and something happened where the Siri in my car, I was talking about it and it responded to us, and we started laughing really hard. It was just a really funny moment. And I remember she looked at me and she said, I didn't know if I was going to see you laugh again. Like, you haven't laughed in so long. And I remembered that I thought about that in that moment, and I'm like, I, for so many years, tried to hide my laughter. I didn't want to, like, I didn't feel like I could laugh or find things that I thought were funny. And I've laughed more in the past few months than I probably have in the last, I don't even know how many years. And I don't think that it was because of a person or thing. I just think I was not in the place that I truly needed to be in to thrive and show up in the best version of myself. And so I'm grateful for all of the gifts. I'm grateful for all of the blessings, but I also know that as hard as this choice was, the decision to get divorced, it was the best thing for me moving forward. And sometimes some of the best decisions we make in our lives are also the hardest. So I just tell people, like, stick with it. Don't try to fight it. Don't pretend it doesn't exist. And, I would tell people to hire a coach, hire a therapist if you need to. I think they go hand in hand in some situations, but like, do the things to better who you are and not focus on what was. That was a big lesson for me, was that what was no longer there. So I got to create what is, what's going to be. Those are the things that I constantly focus on moving forward. So that is my yearly update on what it's like to be divorced after a year. We've officially been separated. So thanks for listening. Thanks for being here and for choosing to be a little louder, a little braver, and a whole lot more you. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love it if you subscribed, left a review, or shared it with someone who needs it. Until next time, keep tuning in to the fire inside. Stay unquiet.